He's the one that invented this character, both of these characters, all of the characters. People fell in love with that version of the characters, and now he's calling them racist for falling in love with the characters he invented. Riordan admits he's a racist and calls his own fans racist over wanting accurate source material casting. Now, this is happening more and more over the last decade. It seems to be a pattern of calling fans and people that absorb pop culture as racist every time that they disagree with the changes that Hollywood is trying to make. These characters became popular and people became devoted to them for a reason. You don't need to go around changing everything in order to meet some bullshit quota that Hollywood feels that it has to make in order to appease the left wing, or more like the radical left wing. Because I know plenty of people that belong to the left side of politics who are more than capable of accepting the fact that people are not always going to look the way they do and can still relate to them. And the idea that characters that are of different ethnicities that aren't white, so like black and brown characters, for some reason can't be original, well thought out characters that are conceived from the beginning to be of dark skin, that they can't be their own characters from the start, and that they have to basically get rid of white characters and change their race in order to try and take the popularity of one character and imprint it onto another, because they don't think that black characters can be popular if they start from scratch. Just goes to prove that these radical, hyper left wing, what I would consider to be racist individuals, aren't capable of creating original black characters that are well thought out and well developed, that people of different colors and backgrounds will be able to enjoy. That it speaks more about them and their own issues with people that don't look like them than it does the rest of us. All we want is for the materials that we fell in love with as a kid to remain as they were and to remain faithful to the characters that we enjoyed as children. But no, they can't do that. So they've taken yet another character and have decided to start warping the material in order to meet their agenda. And once again, they're making the same mistake that every other company does by calling out the fans who are annoyed by this as racists, as if that's going to make them want to come and watch the show. Bullshit. That instantly is going to cause their content to fail, to go broke. It will. This is just the show's dead before it's begun, unfortunately. So getting into this, Percy Jackson and the Olympians novelist Riordan made the bizarre argument that he's a racist in order to justify calling his own fans racist for being crucial of the race swap casting of Leah Jeffries in the role of Annabeth Chase for the upcoming Disney Plus series. Now, I've read the books. I read them in my early teenage years. It is the reason I went to university to study history. They weren't accurate entirely, but they sparked my intrigue and made me passionate about the topic. So I actually went to university to learn how to teach this stuff until I realized that universities were nothing less than indoctrination camps and money-grabbing people that seek to impoverish young adults who are trying to get their lives started whilst convincing them that it's for their own benefit so they can go out into the world and start indoctrinating the people around them. So I got the hell out of there as soon as I could. This series of books meant a lot to me. So to hear this author that I greatly appreciated as a child come out and call people like me who just want the show to be faithful to the source material as racist because I'm not interested in a character that's being race swapped after they promised to make it faithful. It's total bullshit. I'm not going to sit there with my nieces and nephews and enjoy it with them. Now am I? Not after this insult. 2 days after claiming he was delighted to hear about the overwhelmingly positive response to the casting announcements, Riordan is now calling his own fans racist while also telling fans to stop harassing Jeffries. Now, I don't agree. If this is actually going on, there's no way in hell I agree with a young woman being abused online. I think that's utterly absurd. It's not her doing that this is happening. She's just gone and applied for the role, and good for her. Doesn't mean that I think she should be playing the part because she's not Annabeth Chase. It's just a fact. In a post on his website titled, Leah Jeffries is Annabeth Chase, Riordan began by writing, "This post is specifically for those who have a problem with the casting of Leah Jeffries as Annabeth Chase. It's a shame such posts need to be written, but they do." He's gearing up to lecture you, to lecture the people that he's hoping will go and watch this show. He's off to a great start. He then clarified, "First, let me be clear, I am speaking here only for myself. These thoughts are mine alone. They do not necessarily reflect or represent the opinions of any part of Disney, the TV show, the production team, or the Jeffries family." No, but I'm sure it aligns very closely to what Disney and their agenda has been for the last 10 years. From there, he reiterated the idea that the response to the casting has been overwhelmingly positive, which begs the question as to why he would even write a post outing himself as a racist and calling his fans racist. So this is Annabeth Chase. This is as she's described. She's meant to be this sort of blonde-haired, tanned, grey-eyed young girl, daughter of Athena, whose mother has a thing for blonde-haired men. All of her siblings more or less look as she does because Athena has a type. So that's made very clear multiple times throughout the books consistently. So it's not as if we've just come up with the idea that Annabeth has to be white because we're all racist. No, it's because that's how he described the character. So it's not like it's something that we've just come up with on our own. No, that's his idea of who Annabeth was over and over again in all his material. And all of a sudden, he's changing his mind and telling us to get over it and get used to it. He continued by claiming that people are bullying and harassing Jeffries, which is not on, that's bullshit, albeit without providing any proof. If you have a problem with the casting, however, take it up with me. You have no one else to blame. Whatever else you take from this post, we should be able to agree that bullying and harassing a child online is inexcusably wrong, which I agree with. So that this is a beautiful young girl. She would have made a perfect Hazel. She's incredibly... Hazel's meant to be this African-American woman, daughter of a single mother from Louisiana, I believe. And she has a very rich backstory. She would have made the perfect Hazel. And no one would have had a problem with it. Why? Because Hazel is described as being an African-American young woman, daughter of a single black mum. No one would have had a problem with it. No one had a problem with it in the books. So it's not like it was necessary in order to inject people of color into the books. People of color already exist in the books and have major roles. So this idea of making characters black because there's not enough diversity is nonsense. Well, actually, majority of them are mixed race because the gods are Greek and the overwhelming majority of the Greek gods appear as Greek individuals look, Southern European looking. So majority of the kids who have parents or non-divine parents of color end up being not only darker skin but mixed race as well. So they're even more diverse. So there's no need for this. Goes on to say he's right. Bullying and harassing a child is wrong, but Riordan does not provide any proof that this is actually happening. Instead, nearly all the criticisms I've seen have been directed at Riordan and Disney. Not surprising. His wife Becky mentions something about TikTok, but again doesn't provide anything concrete, and it's unclear if it has anything to do with harassing or bullying. She tweeted, "To keep you abreast of what has been happening about TikTok, Leah's family and Disney is working on a new handle for Leah. We will be getting this sorted." Which, if this is happening, granted, Bounding into Comics is saying that there's no proof has been presented, but if it is, it's good that the families are being defended. That's a good thing. These children shouldn't have to be going through this, but they wouldn't be in this position at all if Disney didn't have a race quota to maintain. And if they're going to pick on her for the fact that bring up the fact that she's black as the reason that people are bullying her, I'm surprised that they're not doing it because she's a woman too. That'll be the next thing. Nevertheless, Riordan continues his post explaining that the show needed to adhere to Disney's policies. Okay, so he says at the beginning that this is all his opinion, this is his doing, this is what he wanted, and yet he goes on to say that Disney has a policy that they had to adhere to. So it's not just his decision, it's Disney's too. He wrote, "It was quite clear a year ago when we announced our first open casting that we would be following Disney's company policy on non-discrimination. We are committed to diverse, inclusive casting. For every role, please submit qualified performers without regard to disability, gender, race, ethnicity, age, color, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, or any other basis prohibited by law." All of that contained buzzwords that come up repeatedly over and over and over again over the last 10 years. Inclusive and diverse. We can already tell, based on those two words alone, that the original fans of this series are not going to be happy. And the show is probably not going to do all that well at all. And it's not because the story itself is bad. It's because Disney has taken yet another IP and shit all over it, which is a damn shame because it's a good series of books that are already diverse and inclusive, but done in a manner that is tasteful and is not lecturing. If it had have been, I would never have bothered reading the whole thing. Riordan continued, "I have been clear as the author that I was looking for the best actors to inhabit and bring to life the personalities of these characters, and that physical appearance was secondary for me. Leah Jeffries is Annabeth Chase," he asserted. So this young man, Arian, is playing Grover, from what I understand. Grover is not described as being of dark skin. He's supposed to almost look like he's 18 years old. He's full growing a goatee and everything. So it's not just her, which is why I think the gender thing will come up. Riordan then decided to call his fans racist for wanting an accurate depiction of a character, because that always works out well for TV shows when the creators call fans racist. It's very endearing to the audience. Ironically, the argument he makes means that all characters should be race swapped no matter what their source material is. The Percy Jackson author writes, some of you have apparently felt offended or exasperated when your objections are called out online as racist. But I'm not a racist, you say. It is not racist to want an actor who is accurate to the book's description of the character. That's a statement I agree with. He's the one that invented this character, both of these characters, all of the characters. People fell in love with that version of the characters, and now he's calling them racist for falling in love with the characters he invented. He explains, you're upset, disappointed, frustrated, angry because a black actor has been cast to play a character who was described as white in the books. She doesn't look the way I always imagined. Well, it's not, and this is a statement that he has made in regards to what he thinks the people that are talking to this young girl are saying. It's not what we imagine them to look. He described the way she looked, the way they all looked. It's not something we've made up. He made it up. You either are not aware or have dismissed Leah's years of hard work honing her craft. She may very well be a fantastic young actress. No one is denying that. But that doesn't take away from the fact that that's not what the character has been made out to be for the last decade or however long these books have been out for. So excuse me for wanting the character to be accurate. He argues, without having seen her play the part, you have prejudged her, plea plus judge equals prejudice, and decide she must have been hired simply to fill a quota or tick a diversity box. And by the way, these criticisms have come from across the political spectrum, right and the left. Is that so? So both sides of the political spectrum. So in other words, people of all different backgrounds, ideologies, and belief systems aren't happy about this. So what does that tell you? What makes you think that the people on those spectrums don't look the way Leah does and are still upset because they want the character to look a certain way? Now, I'm not black, but I would presume to think that just based on your skin color makes you a racist, nor does it mean that you have to think a certain way. That to me is inherently racist. So this isn't about a political thing. Disney's made it political by doing this stuff. And when he says, oh, this isn't to fill some race quota, and yet we already know that Disney does have a political agenda surrounding the woke, surrounding gender and identity and race. We already know this. So forgive me for thinking that this has a part to play in it, considering that he also quoted Disney's policies about being more inclusive. Riordan elaborates, you have decided that I couldn't possibly mean what I have always said, that the true nature of the character lies in their personality. You feel I must have been coerced, brainwashed, bribed, threatened, whatever. Or I, as a white male author, never would have chosen a black actor for the part of this canonically white girl. So you admit she's canonically white, and yet you're getting annoyed and calling the audience racist for wanting to have the material and the TV show be canon. He's making my argument for me. Riordan writes, once you see Leah as Annabeth, she will become exactly the way you imagined Annabeth, but you refuse to credit that this may be true. We didn't imagine Annabeth looking in any way. You told us what she looked like. And that's the image we formed in our head because you described what she looked like. What the hell? And see, there's other movies out there that pissed me off when it came to the race swapping of characters. Now, this is the Gods of Egypt movie that came out a few years ago, and they do this all the time. And it was fair enough that the left called them out saying you're race swapping canonically brown characters. They had like white men playing Egyptian gods. They had white actors playing Egyptians. No, the Egyptian people are of North African, Middle Eastern mix. They are brown. Why would you make a movie with a fully white cast playing individuals and gods that are literally described by the Egyptian people as being of dark skin? This pisses me off too, because it isn't right. Why would you do that? And yet, I'm not allowed to be upset when it's the inverse, when they take a canonically white character and make them brown in order to make it more diverse. How is this not diverse? How is this not the same thing? Well, there's not enough white people in Egyptian mythology. So we're going to inject them white people into a brown person's movie. Isn't it the same? Isn't it? Because it pissed me off when they did it for this movie too, and it pisses me off when they do it for others. I don't care what color their skin is. I want it to be accurate. Oh, it's so that it's more diverse and true to the modern era. I was like, no. Okay, it makes it more diverse. Is it accurate for the era? No. No, it doesn't. And it's freaking frustrating that it can be okay to do it one way and make a canonically white character black, but it's not okay to do it when it's a canonically black character and making them white. It's either one or the other. Either you get to race swap people all the time, regardless of the background, the culture that they're representing. It's either okay to do it for everybody or it's never okay. This upsets me as much as this does. Tell Hollywood, if you're listening, make better black and brown characters. For goodness sake, there are a lot of great talented actors and storytellers out there who are more than capable of making great characters. People that are of lighter skin will like them if you tell a good story. It's not a reflection of how racist the audience is. It's a reflection of how inept and incapable Hollywood is of creating characters that are of dark skin. Make more movies about ancient Egypt and other myths out of Africa. I guarantee you if it's a good story and they're great myths, people will love them no matter their color. Because then you may actually be able to make a TV show that is culturally diverse, that does center around black individuals and brown individuals, and you won't have to piss off the audience and you won't lose money as a result. How about that? But no, they're not going to do that, are they? Because it's easier to do this and then piss off the audience and then blame them when the show bombs. He then calls his fans racist for wanting characters to look the way they are described in his books. You are judging her appropriateness for this role solely and exclusively on how she looks. She's a black girl playing someone who was described in the books as white. Friends, that is racism. What an ass. There is no way I am watching this show. There is no way when I'm babysitting and I'm going to sit there and watch this with them. Because why would I want to expose them to a writer who thinks that half of them are racist because half of my cousins and my nieces and that are white, whilst the other half are indigenous? So they don't have color like me. But I don't want to expose them to stuff where they're basically being told that the cousin that they've got sitting next to them is somehow going to be inherently more racist because her skin's lighter than what their own is. When prior to turning on the television, that was never an issue, the fact that they looked a bit different. Riordan then drives into the racist critical race theory well and declares that if you say you aren't racist, you actually are racist. It proves the point of many critics that the race swaps would be indicative of even more changes to the source material. Absolutely, there will be. It wouldn't shock me if they eventually make Annabeth lesbian, to be perfectly honest, even though there's already lesbian and gay characters in it that have major roles in the plot. But anyway, as much as he tried to justify her casting decision by pointing out all of her hard work, he completely undermines it by using critical race theory, and it further lends one to believe that she wasn't cast for her hard work and talent, but as a quota for Disney's Reimagine Tomorrow campaign. That is always, whenever this stuff gets brought up, it is always going to be the topic of discussion about whether or not these young people actually deserve the part or not, because the fact that they are of a different color has had a part to play in boosting their chances of getting roles. It's so disgusting. Eventually, these kids are going to grow up and understand this and start asking these questions themselves. Would I be considered as good an actor as what I thought I was? Am I as talented as I think I am? Riordan writes, and before you resort to the old knee-jerk reaction, I am not a racist, let's explain the statement too. If I may quote from an excellent recent article in the Boston Globe about Dr. Karma Enos, to say a person doesn't have bias is to say that that person isn't human. It's how we navigate the world, based on what we're taught and on our own personal histories. He continues, racism, colorism isn't something that we have or don't have. I have it. You have it. We all do. And not just white people like me, all people. It's either something we recognize and try to work on, or it's something we deny. Saying I'm not racist is simply declaring that you deny your own biases and refuse to work on them. So he is admitting to being a racist. Why does it always seem to be the radical left that acts in a way, they claim that they care about people of dark skin, and yet they're constantly the ones undermining them at every twist and turn? I don't understand that. It's as if people of darker origin, African Americans, Indigenous Australians and all that have no psychological, ideological autonomy over what they believe. And that's for some reason people who are of my skin colour need to imprint upon them. It's not about the way you look. It's about what you bring to the table and how you think that matters. And even if you think differently to the way I do. As long as we're both willing to come to the table and accept the fact that the other person isn't going to think the way I do, and we can still love each other at the end of the conversation, that's what matters. So it always seems to be from the left that makes it about the way you look. I mean, we spent generations trying to resist this ideology, and now all of a sudden it's making a comeback, and it's gross. And it's coming from the very side that resisted it and fought against it in the first place. Irony. Riordan then explains what he believes was the message of his novels. The core message of Percy Jackson has always been that difference is strength. You should never judge someone by how well they fit your preconceived notions, which is exactly what he's doing to his own audience. He has a preconceived notion of the way his audience is thinking in regards to his characters, and then calling us racist for it, whilst also saying that this is what he is taught. This is what he has taught us over the series of his books. He's taught us to see each other as individuals and to not have preconceived notions, and yet that's exactly what he's doing to us. So he's not learned his own lesson. If you don't get that, if you're still upset about the casting of this marvelous trio, then it doesn't matter how many times you have read the books. You didn't learn anything from them. Clearly you didn't either, mate. Finally, he concluded by telling fans to watch the show or don't. That's your call, but this will be an adaptation that I am proud of, and which fully honours the spirit of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Well, you heard it out of the horse's mouth. Watch it or don't watch it. I don't plan on watching it. I'm sure there's people out there watching this right now aren't going to watch it either. So we'll see how long this thing actually manages to last. Considering that he's invited us not to watch it, Rick Riordan has effectively killed his own franchise before it's even got started, I'll say. He's following the 5 steps laid out by the critical drinker on how to kill a television show. Step 1, pick a really popular IP with a loyal fan base. Check. Been a fan of this series for a decade. Step 2, update it for the modern audiences. In other words, fill it with woke ideology. Check. Step 3, antagonize the fan base prior to release. Well, he's managed that, hasn't he? Get cancelled due to low ratings? Yep, it probably won't take long. Step 5, blame the fan base for steps 1 to 4. Yep, pretty much. This guy's fantastic. Who is this? The critical drinker? I mean, this guy must be a fortune teller. Percy Jackson and the Olympians is a popular IP with a loyal fan base. The casting and the use of critical race theory to justify the casting clearly indicates the series will be updated for modern audiences. In other words, overweight, pink-haired wankers who feel incredibly entitled to tell you what you shouldn't think and what your children should be exposed to because they know better than you. They've probably gone to university and have a degree and have been taught by the government and the board of studies and whatever education facilities they have around the world that we are always right and we know how people should think. So you need to go out there and tell everyone that you are right and everybody else is wrong because we are always right. And because we've taught you what's right and what's wrong, you could never possibly be wrong. So stop thinking and go out there and spit out the words we've taught you to say. Riordan is clearly antagonizing the fan base prior to release by calling them racist. And it's not just Riordan. His wife is doing it too. She not only is calling fans racist, but misogynists as well. See, I haven't actually read this article yet, so what a call. Knew it was coming. So now we're considered sexist and racist. Well, now I'm a woman. I don't condone any form of misogyny whatsoever, but I feel like the misogyny drum has been beaten one too many times that it's losing its bite. You know, you call a man or a woman a misogynist or a misandrist now, people shut down. People stop listening. And race is becoming the same way, which is not a good thing. Because if people start tuning out to these sorts of language, it means that they stop taking the whole issue seriously. So when someone really is the victim of racism or really is the victim of misogyny or misandry, because it is possible to be sexist towards men, ladies, people don't care and they ignore that the crime is happening, which isn't good for anybody. We are now just waiting on the show to be cancelled and Riordan and Disney to blame the fans for its failure, and it'll only be a matter of time. Anyway, I fully anticipate this flopping. I don't appreciate being considered a racist or a sexist. I mean, there was a part of me that thought maybe I'd give it a chance and see if I can sort of set aside and suspend my reality and ignore the fact that the character of Annabeth and Grover are not Annabeth and Grover. Now, after this behaviour, I'm going to take Riordan up on his offer and I am not going to be watching this. How about all of you that are listening right now? Are you planning on watching this show or are you going to tell them to shove it? Let me know what you all think. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to get access to all of my new videos and updates that will be coming out because there's a hell of a ton of material coming out when it comes to pop culture at the moment and the way the world is heading. So guarantee you'll be hearing from me again. Look forward to hearing from you all. Take care.